The real issue today in the USA is an epidemic growth of poverty. Why the situation is so serious?
The poverty's always been there, it's just grown deeper. There have been about 40 million people that, depending on how you define poverty, were poor anyway. They were working poor. They had poor nutrition, no education, and so on. It's more like the problem deepened. Are there new poor?
So who are the newer poor people in the USA?
Well, every time America discovers the obvious, they call it new. And what happens is we have about 50 or 60 million people that have been living day to day, paycheck to paycheck, between jobs, poor health, lousy education for a long, long time. A huge white underclass that is now officially poor. Our media comes from the cities, where you can see race and ethnicity. So poverty in the cities is color coded. So the ditzy little blonde on TV can tell the difference between a poor person. They're darker. But now that this thing is rumbling underneath the heartland, that's a whole new thing. Nobody knows how to deal with it because of the popular idea that only minorities are poor.
So today America is no longer the best place in the world to live.
Was it ever? Depends on what you think the best is. People from other nations with less material goods, less commodities, standing in line to get simple things, naturally would see the availability of commodities in America as better living. But the fact of the matter is the capitalist system force feeds commodities down people's throats, stuffing them like a Christmas goose, to the point where they're spending tens of thousands on credit, well, partly for health care. And how many commodities are enough, and how many can the earth produce? One 24-year-old American boy uses as many of the earth's resources in a day as 24 families farming in India. That's the American lifestyle that everybody wants to support. 6% of the people use 36% of the world's resources. Well, you can't keep killing people to get them forever. At some point, it's going to settle down and people realize this is not the best system. It's back when everybody was worried about food and clothing. Yeah, sure, it looked good. And you have to remember that when people settled in America, these first colonists landed on the biggest pile of resources the world had ever known. And so you saw people get ahead on their own, and the rugged individuality, the self-made man and all that. That's not possible anymore. We have 7 billion people on a diminishing planet. And so the myth of going there as the best place, well, we'll find out in 20 years if you can eat yourself up.
You wrote in your book, a part of the nation doesn't know how the other part lives. Is it maybe because of the mass media? I mean, they don't speak about these problems enough.
If you need the media to tell you who your fellow human beings are, you're already screwed. The thing is that they live in different traceways in the machinery of capitalism. The university professor, the judge, the lawyer, the teacher, they're part of a commissariat that keeps the rest of them in line. The judge says, you have blood in your alcohol. The teacher says, your child is attention deficit. And they're just commissars for the empire. Meanwhile, the people suffer. The American dream was an advertising campaign. After World War II, to replace the profits of World War II, Roosevelt, and more especially Truman and DuPont and Union Carbide, said, we have to preserve these profits for Wall Street. What we have to do is create more consumers. So they pushed 22 million people off of farms. 44% of people in America lived rurally before the war. 10 years later, only 2% did, or now only 2%. So they pushed them out there and they made them consumers. Work in a plant, build more plants in the South. Then you have to buy a car to get there, and you have to buy gas, and DuPont could sell its nylon and rayon that it used to make parachutes out of. So what happened was that the American dream as advertised was going to be this Buick and a bungalow, right? That didn't happen to that many people. After World War II, only about 2 million people used the GI Bill and built a little bungalow and all that stuff. There's a lot of mythology built up around that. Most people had lives, you know, of just working the plant and so on. America was it's still unionized, at least about a third. But no, that's the American dream has always been. We've always been good marketers. Boy, we can sell anybody anything.